it is one of those great examples where you have the clues the whole time, you're just not putting them together.
There may or may not be truth to the rumor that this was inspiration for Sheena Was a Man.
And then at the end, they're like, no, you think this isn't a horror movie? Don't try the gumbo.
That is your spoiler alert. And boy, that's annoying, isn't it? That was annoying. That was annoying noise I just made. But that's good because I let there be no misconceptions. We're going to talk about twist endings today, and that means we're going to give them away. There will be spoilers. Wasn't that a movie by Paul Thomas Anderson? No. But it should be. Welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we are from madwolf.com with a special guest today. We've been trying to get on the show for a while. We've finally done that. It's Andy Ussery from the Black Cat Shadow podcast. Welcome in.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's a great honor to be on part of your show today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It should be fun because we're talking about those twist endings. Now, we've had a podcast before on just our favorite endings.
Correct.
But that is different. These are the twisty endings, and we'll talk about why. But first, we want to say thank you to everybody that came out and helped us enjoy the lighthearted comedy that is Baskin last time out.
It is a romp, isn't it? In particular, there are a lot of people that came out, and Matt Weiner, our friend Matt Weiner, it was funny. He walked in the door, and George was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like,
He doesn't like the hard stuff.
No, he doesn't. But I talked him into coming, and we sat with him to help him through it. But
Held his hand.
But also, the Buckeye from Michigan, he came out for it, so that's very cool. Good to have you at one of the tapings.
That is cool, and we also got a pronunciation correction. Usually, I lean on you for the correct pronunciations, and this time you messed it up because Silas pointed something out.
Well, so it was his idea that we include in our pretend podcast that we'll someday do about Lovecraft, a film that involved the word Cthulhu, which I mispronounced with a ch sound. So I apologize. We're not big Lovecraft fans, but I've always loved the spelling of that word, but obviously I didn't know how to say it.
So it's Cthulhu.
That's according to Silas.
All right. Hope we didn't offend Cthulhu, but thank you for that. So we're talking about twist endings today, and it's actually very timely because, now, Andy, we were talking before we started taping. You have not seen Jordan Peele's new movie, Us.
There's a family in our driveway.
That's right. I have not seen it. So
well, it's only been out, at the time of we tape this, it's only been out a couple of days, so you've got plenty of time. But the thing is, it has a nice twist ending, which we wouldn't dream of spoiling right now. But if
Awesome.
if we revisit this topic down the road, that could make the list.
It could, and whether it does or doesn't, everyone should go see it. It's just glorious.
Yeah, I love it. It's a good movie with a good twist ending and falls right in line with what we're talking about today because it's interesting. When Hope and I were talking about this subject, we started thinking about the movies we're going to include, and then we started kind of down a rabbit hole ourselves, like, is that a twist ending? What is a twist ending? What qualifies as a twist ending? And then, no, it isn't. And so that's part of the stuff that we're going to get to today.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I don't know, Andy, if you had the same problem when you were coming up with your list, because at a certain point I thought to myself, well, fuck, they're all twist endings. And then I'm like, no. None of them are twists. So for a long time, I had the film Kill List on this list. A, because it's just a brilliant movie, and we haven't talked about it in a while. And B, because I thought to myself, I did not see that ending coming. But then I thought, well, that doesn't make it a twist ending. That just makes it, I didn't see the middle coming. I didn't see it's just a really unusual and unpredictable movie. And that's really what made me rethink everything that I was considering. And I thought, well, what am I defining as a twist ending? It's a movie that it's an ending you didn't see coming but should have seen coming. When you pulled your list together, Andy, what parameters were you using?
Yeah, kind of similar along the lines, like an ending that, and in some of the cases it kind of happens more in the middle of the movie, but it's like where something, you're going along with the story and you already have an expectation that it's going to end up a certain way, but then ends up something totally different. I think that's kind of where I was, thinking of, making my list. And a lot of times, horror movies, they can be predictable sometimes, but I think the ones that are the best are the ones that are unpredictable, like what you were talking about. So I had a lot of fun putting together this list. It's these are some of my favorite kinds of movies to watch. The ones where it keeps you on your toes.
My criteria was pretty similar, but it's not just for me. It's not just it has to be unpredictable because you could make anything, just throw anything in there. It has to work, within the context of the movie. And then I think in the best times, it makes you think back about the little clues that are usually dropped along the way. And, I should have seen that coming, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And in so many of these movies, one in particular, it invites you to go back and watch it again, knowing what you know now, and then you'll see little breadcrumbs that were dropped along the way. And in many cases, they're brilliant breadcrumbs. So it can't just be unpredictable. It's got to work.
Yeah, what I wound up going with for mine was the idea that the filmmaker is playing with your preconceived notions of the genre. You're following along, and they've crafted a film that, in a lot of structural ways, looks like other movies that you've seen, with the intention of pulling the rug out from under you. And I think that in the best cases, those are incredibly satisfying. And like you said, George, they make you want to go back immediately and watch it and realize if I had just followed the clues that were there for me the whole time, but instead it was like sleight of hand. I just watched what I thought I was supposed to be watching or noticing. And that was the point all along. So that's what I wound up going with myself, because otherwise, you can, like I said, Kill List, Mandy, the whole time you're like, damn, what? But that's a whole other, the What the Fuck podcast. That was a whole other one we did.
Yeah, because case in point, when you were saying that, I immediately thought of a movie that's not on this list with a good twist ending, and that is Split. Because once you got to that ending, you realize he was playing with you the whole time. He knew that you were trying to figure out a twist ending because it's him. And he was playing with that the entire time and then came in and gave you something you totally didn't expect, and it was just freaking brilliant. So he's known for that, and he's probably going to be on this list, M. Night. But that was one that I think qualifies, like you were saying, playing with your preconceived notions. So, in the end, you know what? It's like pornography. We know it when we see it, right? It's a twist ending.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's get to it. We each have 5, and they do not overlap, so that's fun. So we'll start with Andy, your 5th best twist ending. What do you got?
Well, my number 5 is Identity.
What is it, Malcolm? Whores don't get
second chance.
With John Cusack.
Yeah, from 2003. That was James Mangold, who's done Logan and Walk the Line 3:10 to Yuma. Good filmmaker. And I remember seeing that one, the big multiple personality reveal at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that I was not expecting that. I went in, I was all on board just for a, run-of-the-mill slasher movie. That's what it kind of, or murder mystery. That's kind of what it was shaping up to be, when I walked into the theater. And then when you get this like more psychological thing happening, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. It's pretty inventive. And like we said, that happens more, the twist, if you want to call it that, happens more towards the middle of the movie. But then, even towards the end, there's like a second twist,
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed that.
And I think if we ever did a podcast about the rainiest horror movies, this would be number 1. It's constantly pouring rain.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because the fact that James Mangold was the one who made this movie, to me, is one of the reasons why he assembled. This cast is crazy, right? I mean, so you got Cusack, obviously, John Hawkes, Ray Liotta, Amanda Peet, John McGinley. And then for me, the thing that made it work the best was sort of the headspace we're inside of, was the actor Pruitt Taylor Vince, right, who had only done before this movie Heavy. And he's done a lot. In fact, he was just in Devil's Candy a couple of years ago. And he's just got such a menacing big lunk of a presence, and I just love him and everything. Rubberhead.
He's Rubberhead.
Yeah.
Rubberhead from Nobody's Fool with Paul Newman and Bruce Willis. Not a horror movie, but ever since that movie, every time we see him, there's Rub. So that's his claim to fame. Maybe not, but yeah, that's a good one. The multiple personality reveal and Identity. So that's your number 5. And Hope, I've lost my list. What's our number 5?
Well, it's not a great movie, but it's a movie that I've loved since I was very young. And it is. Nobody's going to tell me you saw this ending coming. And the other thing about it, it's an ending that people come back to. Like, it's the reason people come back to the movie, and that's Sleepaway Camp.
God, she's a boy.
Sleepaway Camp from 1983. It's you're right. It's not a great movie, but oh my Lord, that ending. Especially there was a friend of ours on social media not too long ago who had not seen it. And everybody's just going, "Are you serious?" And then you're trying to think of ways. I can't say what you're going to but man, when you get to it, it's just like your face is probably like her face at the end. That freeze frame of that face, you're going, oh no, are you serious? And that is a twist.
It is, and it's so fun. And actually, and we're not going to talk, as you said, a lot about the movies themselves. I really like this whole movie. I think it toys with your expectations in the weirdest ways, and in a very realistic way. He does set you up for this in a way. I mean, you just can't possibly see it coming. And then, the face that Felissa Rose makes at the end of the movie as Angela, who's just been mistaken for Angela all this time, is priceless. But also that body, you're like, what? You were hiding that body all this time?
Apparently, it was accomplished with a obviously nude man wearing a mask cast from Felissa Rose's face that made that iconic image. And somehow this turned out to be, they didn't expect it to be such a hit. It was a pretty big hit. It made more than 30 times what was spent on it at the time. And, of course, it spawned some awful sequels that don't have such twist endings. But, boy, I'm actually surprised that this is only number 5 for you because I know how you love it.
We always, when we point out the sequels, we like to mention that Bruce Springsteen's sister stars as Angela in the 2 sequels.
And I actually had the privilege of watching this unspoiled. Like I first saw this like in the late 90s, so it wasn't spoiled for me, so I really appreciated that because I definitely didn't see it coming. And I think it's like you said, it's one of those movies where you go back and watch it again. There are some clues, like especially towards the end, they kind of have some of those kind of surreal scenes where it's like they're kind of weird, but they kind of like point to what the ending's going to be.
I love Aunt Martha. Aunt Martha, Desiree Gould, she's my favorite character in the entire movie. And the whole time you're like, oh yeah, okay, no, I can see that you would do this, sure.
And there may or may not be truth to the rumor that this was inspiration for "Sheena Was a Man" by Tone Loc. So Sleepaway Camp is our number 5 in our twist endings. Moving up to number 4 for Andy. Ooh, this is a classic. What do you got?
Carnival of Souls.
The car's still over there, and then a footprints leading up to here, and then nothing.
1962, yeah.
It's one of those movies where, it kind of takes the whole they were dead the whole time, but it takes that twist, but this is like one of the first movies that did it, and so I think that it's worthy of note because of that, just because of that fact. And I don't know, like if you go back and watch through it, if it necessarily gives you like a ton of clues, but it kind of makes things make a little bit more sense, I think, with some of the things that she's seeing and experiencing, if you know what the twist is.
It's such a great movie, and the black and white, I think, adds to that nightmarish, like, what is she seeing? What is she experiencing? And then it's the director, Herc Harvey, who plays, like, the man is how he's listed, but that ghoul that follows her around. And it's such bad makeup, the white face with the black eyes, but somehow, especially, I think, because of the sort of carnival setting, it works really well. It's so creepy. And I also think that it works for a horror film because by the time you realize, right, that she is dead, she's been dead the whole time, you don't really know enough about her to know why this is where she ended up. But I don't think she was a nice person in her life.
And we've talked about this one a couple of times on the podcast. We've talked about how influential it has been over the years. I mean, you can see a lot of the influence in many other horror movies from this one, and not just for that twist ending, but the way it looks. Even if it is black and white can be so striking sometimes.
Oh no, absolutely! It's incredibly spooky looking, which is exactly the atmosphere that it needed for the whole thing to work.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Carnival of Souls from 1962. Our number 4 is from 1987. Alan Parker's Angel Heart.
The flesh is weak, Johnny. Only the soul is immortal. And yours belongs to me. I know who I am.
So this is one we've never talked about before, so that's exciting.
That is cool. And this is one, you talk about clues. Now, I remember when I first saw it, I didn't guess it, but Robert De Niro's character's name is Louis Saphir. That's a big clue. Why didn't I get that? Why didn't more people get it, really? But I don't think a lot of people did.
No, I think you're right. And one of the reasons that I've always wanted to add, it's Alan Parker directed it, and he wrote the screenplay based on a novel. He also, of course, as you know, he directed Pink Floyd's The Wall, which is hugely influential and near and dear to my heart. Also Fame, which I like less. But the point is, I've always wanted to have this on here, and you're right that the clues are there. And, of course, one of the things that happens at the end, once you realize that Mickey Rourke's character is, in fact, the person that Robert De Niro has hired to find. So he's
Johnny Favorite.
Right. He is, in fact, Johnny Favorite. And so at the end, you get to see all of the murders take place that he has conveniently forgotten. And so it does kind of piece it together for you. But I didn't feel at the time as though, a lot of times when they do that, I feel like I'm being spoon-fed. And one of the reasons I think that it works as well as it does is because each one of those murders is so gory when he just drops that guy's head in the gumbo.
I know, yeah.
And so actually it pushes, up until then, I think it's a really creepy atmospheric thriller. Right? And then at the end, they're like, no, you think this isn't a horror movie? Don't try the gumbo.
Extra chunky. And this is the one, if you remember, this is the one that got Lisa Bonet fired from The Cosby Show.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
When it came out, it caused a lot of furor, and people thought it was it should have had an X rating and everything, which is interesting. But it's got such a great atmosphere, just this unseemly kind of sweaty New Orleans vibe that
very sweaty.
Very. And I love that. And I thought that Mickey Rourke was great in it. And the only other time we've talked about this was we did years ago, the best Satan, the best on-screen Satan. And of course, De Niro has that iconic scene where he rolls the hard-boiled egg and then picks it off with these long manicured fingernails and then, of course, eats the egg. And it just sets you up for, he's just not right.
Well, that's a clue right there, because in that scene, he says, in some religions, the egg is the symbol of the soul, and then he eats it. Lucifer. So yes, we should have seen that. It's like, come on, pay attention. But we didn't, and a lot of people didn't. And it was a good twist ending for Angel Heart in 1987. That was our number 4, so we move up to number 3 for Andy's favorite twist ending. Hit it.
It is April Fool's Day from the 80s.
Yeah, 86. 86.
Yeah.
April Fool.
This is one of those movies that, you think it's going to be an 80s slasher, which I'm game for. But the ending, we get this twist where it was all just like a huge prank, a joke kind of thing. And it was like a murder mystery party idea or something like that. But it was a really cool ending that I did not see coming. And in this time, there was a bunch of like dead teenager movies coming out, all these slasher movies coming out. So this was like quite an unexpected twist for me, definitely.
It was actually sort of meta before meta was even a thing. And it's funny because a lot of people point to this as the death of the slasher, because in a lot of ways it made the audience feel stupid that we were flocking to these movies specifically so we could predict them. Like that really was a big draw in the 80s for the slashers, is just figuring out, you know what I mean? If there's like a level of comfort and not scariness when you go into it, knowing you can figure out the pattern. And it's kind of perfect because it's called April Fool's Day, right? So it's like we should have known the whole time. And one of the things I love about it too is like, so Deborah Foreman and Amy Steele are both like the leads in it, and those two are such. They were in every movie that came out in the 1980s. They really were. Of course, Steele was in Halloween 2. She's the last girl, the final girl from Halloween 2. Amy Steele, she's in, I'm sorry, Deborah Foreman is in everything. My Chauffeur, she's in Grizzlies 2. She's in everything. And of course she plays Muffy and Buffy in this one. And it's really clever the way it picks up on little elements from so many different slashers and slaps them all together in a way that in the end, which is what I think bothered people at the time, makes fun of you, the audience, because you just didn't see it coming, even though they telegraph it from the very beginning.
And having it be a prank is so much more effective than it was all a dream, because those aren't going to be on here. That is the easiest cop-out as far as a writing prompt, second only to they won the lottery. That's not going to work here, but this one does. April Fool's Day from 1986, number 3 for Andy, and moving up to number 3 for our favorite twist endings. This is one we've talked about a couple of times, and interesting because it was directed by the late, great Bill Paxton from 2001, Frailty.
Oh, good.
FBI agent. They'll come looking for me.
No, they won't. They'll keep looking for Fenton. You're gonna be his last victim. God will protect me.
This is one that makes you wonder why he didn't direct more movies. Not only is it a cool story, it's from a novel, but it's so well directed.
It is. It's incredibly well directed. And I think that, in the way the other films kind of play on your expectations, your genre expectations, you think, so it's about, the small town, very sweet dad who believes that he is being told by an angel of God who demons that are dressed like people. And so he makes his sons go help him kill these demons. And his performance, Paxton's performance, is so wonderful because he's so empathetic. You really feel for him. And he wants so badly for his children to sort of serve this higher purpose, even though it's so hard for them to see what they're doing. And because you're sort of conditioned in horror movies, especially sort of post the 80s, to think that the movie is skewering organized religion, which this movie feels like it is doing well the whole time. And that's the twist. At the end, no, he's right. He was right all along. They can see demons. And one of the boys is a demon, and that's why he can't see demons. And it's just a gut punch, but it's so well done.
Yeah, not only is that the twist, but the twist is of the identity of who's been telling this story the whole time. And you think it's one of the kids telling it to the police, the lawman played by Powers Booth. And then you find out, no, it's not him, it's the other one. And Powers Booth is in trouble. So it's a double twist there. And I love that line when Bill Paxton says, "You're not a demon, are you?" You're like, oh. It's like either get with the program here. Yeah, but it is. It works on two different levels and really, really effective. It's Matthew McConaughey,
yep.
And everybody's strong. Even the two kids. The two kids are
They're
good.
so good. They are. They're so good.
Yeah, this is a really good one. I remember, seeing the theater back when it first came out, and yeah, it's one of those movies where you're thinking, well, like you said, you're thinking that the twist is going to be whether or not he's actually killing demons or not, but then it turns out there's that double twist, so that was really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This was a great movie. Like you said, I wish Bill Paxton would have expanded a little bit more and done a little bit more directing in his career.
Yeah, and then once you realize what his real identity is, and then you realize how he's going to get away with it. He's got this, he has had it set up from the beginning that no one had really seen his face, and to say that, no, that's not him, he can't be that way. No, he's going to get away with it. Really, really works well. Frailty, our third favorite twist ending, and we're making time here. We're going up to number 2. This is one, I don't think either one of us had seen it, so you surprised us with this one. You're number 2, Andy. What is it?
This one is called Final Prayer.
I've seen that symbol before.
Yes, in the pagan times.
The evil isn't inside the church.
Is that a voice?
It's underneath it.
It's also called The Borderlands. I think overseas. This one, I think is like mid 2000s.
Yeah, 2013.
Like yeah, 2013. That's right.
Yeah.
But this is a found footage movie, and the thing I like about it is, and we're talking about movies that kind of defy our preconceptions. This movie starts out like, okay, this is going to be another Paranormal Activity found footage movie, blah blah blah. But where this movie goes at the end, no one's going to see this coming out. It definitely takes a turn towards Lovecraft, which I really enjoyed. And just the ending was just totally bonkers. So this is, and it's it's like, I know it's higher up on my list, but it's not a well-known movie. But I think I wanted to kind of bring this because I want more people to know about this movie, because I think it is such a really cool twist.
Yeah, like George said, we'd not seen this before, so thank you for bringing this to our attention. And I'm particularly sorry I didn't see it because a year or so ago I reviewed a film called At the Devil's Door, which basically is this same movie. So that's unfortunate that I hadn't already seen this one, so I could call them on that. And it bears a little bit of a resemblance also to The Nun. So it's, the Vatican has sent some representatives to a church to find out whether or not there's a miracle happening there. And in fact, of course, it's demonic in its origins. No, it's not God. It's not sent from God. Tell me if you notice this, Andy. I'm partway through this movie. I swear to God, the guy, the lead, the one who's not part of the clergy, he's like the IT guy there. Does he sound exactly like John Oliver to you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean,
I was so distracted by that. And I have to admit that I'm not sure that I had a prediction of what would happen, but I don't know. Again, spoilers, right? I loved that they got sort of, I'm claustrophobic. So that ending was really powerful and horrible. But tell me what you thought was going to happen, that seemed like such a twist. I mean, I guess the basic premise is that they were going to die in that basement. Wasn't necessarily a huge surprise. The way they executed it was, I thought, great. But what about it was such a surprise to you?
yeah, I think for me, like I wasn't expecting, like, I don't know. I guess I was, you kind of expect the whole ghost angle to it. And they're going down in these catacombs or whatever. But I think like when it turns into they're actually in the stomach of some, creature, that's what I liked about the twist. Is more like it turned into more of like this Lovecraftian creature thing that lives underground.
Got ya.
And it's like this old god that the people there in the town are worshiping or whatever. I think that's to me, like, because when I think of like paranormal movies, I think of like, okay, this is just like a demonic thing. And I guess maybe I'm separating demons from whatever this old god was like.
Sure.
And I guess it could be in this, they could fall into the same camp. But I think with most paranormal movies, the threat is supernatural or something that's like not material, like something that's not physical. There's really no, I don't know. So there was actually some kind of physical like creature that they run across or that they end up being digested by. I think that was a twist that I appreciated, I think.
Does the monster have a name we can mispronounce?
Yeah, I don't know if they
it's
ever
got
like,
a
had a name
symbol,
for it.
but I don't know. But it's funny that you say that because
Right.
it's another one where they do give you clues. And there's the conversation between the guy who sounds like John Oliver and then Deacon, the sort of representative from the church that we like. And John Oliver character, who's not religious, is like, I don't know. Pagans worshipped physical things that exist. Maybe the sun, maybe the stars, but it was a real physical thing. And if I had to put the two up against each other, I might have to side with the physical thing as opposed to this made-up belief system that you have. And you don't really know how important that conversation is until the end of the movie. And it is one of those great examples where you have the clues the whole time, you're just not putting them together.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, it's a really cool like found footage type movie in it. And like you said, you mentioned those other At the Devil's Door and The Nun. I'm gonna definitely have to check those movies out if they're kind of like this one.
So number 2 for Andy, Final Prayer from 2013. Moving up to our number 2. This is from 2001. We've talked about it a couple of times. We love this one. It is Nicole Kidman and the Others.
Children, if you're dead, why do you remain in this house?
We're not dead.
We're not
We're
dead.
not dead. We're not dead. We're not dead. We're not dead. We're not dead.
This one is based on an episode of the British television series Armchair Theatre. And it's not only Nicole Kidman, but the two little kids are great. And, of course, the big reveal here is that they're worried. They're in this old house, and they're worried that they're being haunted by spirits. And then the twist at the end is, no, you are the spirits, and they are being called by a seance going on in the house. So I didn't see it coming, and it's a good reveal. And her reaction to it as a character, Nicole Kidman's reaction to it as a character is great.
She's she's really one of the greatest just actors working today, but she's so good when she's playing like a brittle character. And that's really what this is. It reminded me for a long time of another film that I love, The Innocents, where you're not sure, like, is this woman just nutty or is her house really haunted, And they plant that seed because she's decided that her children have this allergy to sunlight. And you think, I think you're crazy and you're just keeping your children inside, and how weird is that? But she's constantly closing and then they're being opened. And it leads you to believe the whole time that the house is haunted. When in reality, when you look at it after the fact, they're haunting a house. So it's like
Right.
The people who live there now, every time they walk into a room, the door is closed and locked and the curtains are closed, even though they keep opening them up. And it just is so effective on that level. But like you said, the performances of the ghosts who are afraid that they're being haunted, who don't realize they're ghosts, really, really powerful.
This is a great movie. I think that it, like I didn't really see the ending coming. I wasn't really expecting a twist with this movie. I was expecting, just a straightforward, haunted house movie. So I appreciated the fact that there was that twist thrown in there. And like you said, Nicole Kidman's great. The acting was great. The set pieces, the setting was great. This big, kind of gothic house.
Very. The whole thing is so gothic. Yeah, I love the look of it. The production design is great.
Yeah, it's definitely one to check out if people haven't seen it.
And that is, well, if you haven't seen it, sorry, we gave you the obnoxious spoiler alert sound at the beginning. But it has a nice twist, and that's why it's our number 2, which means there's only one left for Andy, and it's pretty much a classic.
Yeah, and that is Scream from 1996.
Corn syrup. Same stuff they use for pig's blood in Carrie.
Surprise, Sydney.
And I think that the more we talk about movies with a twist, maybe this is like not a huge twist, but I don't know. I think this is just like an instrumental movie for me. Like this is the movie where I fell in love with the slasher genre because of this movie and just the whodunit aspect of it. And I think they do some really cool things with this movie. Obviously, I mean, everybody's talked about it to death, but I think that the identity of the killers is interesting because we spend so much time with the killers throughout the movie. You really get to kind of get a sense of who these people are as people. And then you find out they're killers. And I think, with the typical slasher, the mass killer is like this inhuman, just killing machine. But in Scream, it's kind of turned on its head. And it's like these teenage kids that are doing stupid stuff. But then, they're serial killers as well. So I think it's such a great twist for me, with this movie as an example of the slasher genre.
Yeah, well, this is another one where it's hard to think about it without the cultural significance that it has gotten since 96. It's become such a well-earned piece of pop culture. And you think about when you saw it when it first came out, it's so brilliantly put together. It's so meta. We're talking about meta. This is meta, and it's a love letter to the slasher, and it's another indication of the brilliance of Wes Craven, how he kind of reinvented the genre over and over again throughout his career. And now it's just become, it's like one of those classic rock songs you've heard a million times, and you don't appreciate it till one day you really listen to it again and appreciate how well this movie is put together, leading up to that reveal of who the killers really are.
And one of the things, it's funny to me now that it predicted, right, was sort of this, I mean, it hasn't really been until the last 10 years or so where the idea that people kill people for fame, right? And with the rise of social media, you've got great, brilliant movies like Tragedy Girls, right? But this really predicted that movement because that's why the two characters did it in the first place, was to become infamous. And I don't think a film had done that before. It's happened a lot since then, but it's just another, like you said, another example of Wes Craven just sort of determining the trajectory of his whole genre.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely somebody that has, you got to give credit where credit's due. This guy, Wes Craven, he's kind of like created like 2 or 3 different franchises within his career. Like each, he had like The Hills Have Eyes or Last House on the Left, and then you have Nightmare on Elm Street, which was a huge success and huge defining movie within the horror genre. And then you have Scream on top of all that. I think is definitely something to give him credit for.
Oh, no doubt about that. No doubt. Scream is Andy's number 1, and that leaves room at the top for our number 1. And we kind of left our own clues about what this would be early on, talking about M. Night. Of course, from 1999, The Sixth Sense.
I see people. They don't know they're dead.
How often do you see them?
All the time. They're everywhere.
I see dead people. How iconic is that line? I mean, this is the one I think more than any other fueled people to go back. That's why this movie made so much money, because it got so many people going back again after they got that Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. I got to see it again and see the clues he left, and there are plenty of them.
And in a big way, this kind of created a problem for Shyamalan as a filmmaker, which he has, years later started to resolve by toying with the expectation that he is going to give you a twist ending. I think when he did The Visit, he did it, and as you said again with Split, he did it again. This movie, The Sixth Sense, it's not in the same way that Scream is, because I think people appreciate that Scream is a great movie. I think people have decided in retrospect that The Sixth Sense isn't a great movie, but it actually is. It really invests in character. It's incredibly, incredibly spooky. The fact that it's told through the point of view of a child just makes you, your stomach is just clenched the whole time, either because you feel so sad for a little kid or because you remember how easy it was to be terrified of everything when you were little. And again, I mean, he gives you all the clues. And I know there loads of people are like, nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw it coming. I don't believe it. It was just really, really well resolved in a way that, like you said, just invited you to go back through the film again.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is we had a friend point out to a few people on social media about the movie Us, that she said, don't look at the soundtrack listing because there's a song title in the soundtrack listing for the movie Us that is a bit of a giveaway. And we looked at it, and it kind of is, not as much as this one, because on the soundtrack to Sixth Sense at the time, there is a track called Malcolm is Dead. That is a spoiler, which I know at the time people probably weren't flocking to get the soundtrack. But the soundtrack to Us is very cool. That's one of the great things about the movie Us. The music they use and the sounds, just fantastic. But we digress. We're talking about The Sixth Sense. It's got to be, when people talk about twists, it's got to be one of the granddaddies. I mean, I know there are a bunch out there. You could point to Psycho and a bunch of identity movies, but the fact that they were dead the whole time has been used in other movies. But this one, it just pulled the rug out.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a great movie, and it's such a, like you said, it really M. Night Shyamalan really set the bar high for himself for the rest of his movies, and I think, unfortunately, that kind of led to some disappointment down the line with some of his later efforts, because I think people were, I know me myself, every movie that he came out with, I was expecting some kind of twist, and when it didn't happen, when it doesn't happen, like with Signs or with I don't know, even like Lady in the Water, like there was no real twist, whatever, and so that was a little disappointing. But I think he does have some, at The Village, I appreciate that for that twist, and also even Unbreakable, which not necessarily like a twist, but I think when you see like at the end of the movie, when you see a kind of the formation of what he's setting up, the world he's building, you really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
I love the end of Unbreakable. And also The Visit, the little movie that kind of got, from a few years ago, that kind of got him back in the groove after some horrible disappointments. A little movie called The Visit about some kids that go to visit their grandparents. That one has a twist. We're not going to give away because it's not on the list, and that's one where you just really kick yourself walking out. How did I not see this coming? But you don't, and it's fun. It's not a great movie, but that's a fun one. That kind of got him back in the groove, and then, of course, Split, and he got back in people's good graces. But this is the one. I think you're right. It set up a bar that was awful hard for him to meet, as long as he was too concerned with meaning it, I think, in movies like The Village and things like that. It kind of got diminished returns after a while.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, say what you will about Glass. We thought it was pretty good. Not as good. It certainly doesn't deliver the punch that the end of Split does. But I still think he's a filmmaker to be considered, and I think he's maybe learned a few things from the movies that were horrible disappointments after, a few movies after The Sixth Sense. But this is the one that put him on everybody's radar. 1999, I See Dead People, which, by the way, was voted. Let me find it. It was voted as one of the 100 greatest movie lines by Premiere Magazine in 2007. I mean, that's all you got to say, right? I See Dead People.
It was also nominated for Oscars for Best Picture, for Best Director, for Best Screenplay. I mean, it was taken very seriously, and I think almost to its detriment, because, again, I feel like people look back on it like, ugh, whatever. But it's, it's worth revisiting.
And that is 10 good ones, 10 twist endings. So if you have any that we missed, or if you have some that you want to argue about, that's not really a twist, we're ready for you. You can always find us on Twitter. We are at Fright Club Pod. Always love to keep the conversation going. And other social medias, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. We are Mad Wolf Columbus. And the main website where you can find all of our written reviews of all kinds of movies and our other weekly podcast called The Screening Room. That's all there at madwolf.com. And by the way, if you're in the Central Ohio area, we're now on the TV.
We are. are. We are on Good Day Columbus every Friday at 9:30, where we do a quick few minutes discussion of the movies that are coming out this weekend.
And we give away all the twist endings every time.
No, but we do give away tickets to Gateway Film Center.
We do give away tickets to our favorite Gateway Film Center. So, Andy, where can they find you on the social media?
I'm on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at Black Cat Podcast. Facebook, you just look up Black Cat Shadow. But yeah, Black Cat Shadow Podcast. Those are the two main areas for social media. Yeah, look me up. Check out our episodes. Right now we're doing like a series on serial killers, so we're kind of exploring their lives and also movies that have been based on their lives. So it's interesting.
It sounds good. Yeah, that's always a great topic. And then coming up, we have the next Fright Club Live. It's going to be April 10th, right back at the Gateway Film Center, and we're going to show. This is our classic for the year. We're going to show Daughters of Darkness, which is going to be glorious to see on a big screen. And our topic for the podcast is lesbians in horror. And then after that, the next one that isn't live, we're really excited to have Daniel Baldwin of Bloody Disgusting joining us, and we're going to talk about dirty hippies.
Dirty hippie horror. All right, man. We're going to be putting on our beads and headbands and getting into the mood there. So a lot of good stuff coming up for Andy and for us as well. So get in touch if you can. And until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast. And he is Andy Ussery. Take us out.
Stay frightful, my friends.